I'm just getting ready to plant my tree, but I came back here into the containers because I want to talk about removing containers and burlap and string and things when you plant a tree or a shrub or anything for that matter. Hopefully it's pretty obvious that that black plastic pot that is housing the root ball of my tree up front there is should come off before you plant. Obviously we don't want to be putting plastic into our soil. Same goes for they do some fabric pots now. I don't see them too often, but where it's kind of looks like landscape fabric in a pot, that has to come off too. Where it gets a little more of a gray area is with fiber pots and B&B, which is balled and burlapped root balls. The garden center is often going to tell you for a fiber pot just to maybe take off the lip and take off the bottom and leave the rest of the pot on, or maybe they'll just tell you to leave the whole pot on. Same goes for B&B. They'll tell you to, cut the string and leave the wire basket and leave the burlap on. And they may even void the guarantee if you take it off. If you might want to ask before you buy a tree to find that out, because you might want to shop elsewhere. That is, if you plan on properly planting your trees, which is to take them off. So most tree experts who spend enough time researching this over the course of many years have determined that it's best to take all this stuff off. I'll show you we have a few fiber pots here. I used to plant a lot of these when I did landscaping. And they're supposed to break down in the soil. And if it's proper moisture and if you have the right microorganisms in the soil, they will break down. But if it's dry or if the microbes aren't there, they often don't break down. Even if they do break down, during the interim, what happens is there's a texture interface that happens, which means it's kind of the same thing that I may have talked about before. If you put a bunch of sandy sand on top of more of a clay soil, there's going to be an interface between them that creates water problems. Same thing happens with the pot. Sometimes it can be that the pot helps water stay in the root ball after you've planted the tree, but that can be a problem. It can get too wet. Or the other thing is water may not move from the soil into the root system, and that can be a problem too. So that can happen. Another problem is if it doesn't break down for a long time, the roots may or may not leave the root ball, or many of them may actually end up circling around, become pot bound basically. These fiber pots have been dug up many, many years, sometimes over a decade later. When a tree is found to have died, they dig it up and they find that it's because the pot never broke down. So that can be a problem. Now I want to walk over to, unfortunately, I don't have any B&B plants to show you that are actually up above ground, just because of the time of year. But we do have, sorry, it's going to get really windy here. We do have a few B&Bs in the ground here, and I want to talk about them too. Even more than fiber pots, they're often going to be, you're often going to be told to leave these on. Now, there are a couple different things. First of all, some burlap is synthetic, or it's treated with some kind of copper product so that it lasts longer. Sometimes the string or the rope is synthetic too, and that stuff often doesn't break down for a long, long time in the soil. Same kind of problems ensue, the exact same kind of problems I just talked about. Now, if you want to find out if it's synthetic, you can burn it, and synthetic material often won't catch fire. It'll just smoke or melt, or maybe there'll be a bit of a green hue. Then there's natural stuff, which should break down much more quickly. But I don't even bother trying to figure out if it's natural or synthetic. I just take as much of it off as I can, because the same thing, root balls have been dug up many years later and it's still left on, So it's a good idea to take that off. So what you do is cut the rope off, take as much of the burlap off as you can, and just get it out of there. There's also a wire basket you can see right there. And that one I may leave on for a couple reasons. One, it can be really difficult to get off, especially for a heavy tree like this. It can help the root ball stay together a little bit if it's coming from sandy soil. It shouldn't, if your root ball is going to fall right apart when the wire basket comes off, it's not a great root ball, and it probably it's not a tree you want anyway. But to avoid that problem, sometimes it's easier to leave the wire on. Again, that one definitely the guarantee might be voided if you take the wire basket off. And research shows it's not as big of a deal to leave that on. It doesn't cause tree problems too often. The tree root can actually grow right around, oh, it's windy out here, right around the wire. But that being said, there are times where they'll dig up a tree decades later and they'll see that the wire rotted the roots out from the inside. So when possible, I like to take the wire basket off. Now, a big tree like this, it's kind of difficult. If you ever do want to do it, if you think that the root ball looks pretty solid, it maybe has some clay in it, it's not going to fall apart, what you can do is, before you put it in the hole, take the bottom half of the wire basket off. Then you can use the wire basket to get it in the hole, like if you're using a tractor or some kind of chains to get it into the hole because it's a big heavy root ball. Then once it's in the hole, you can cut off the rest of the wire. So yeah, I think that's all. That's just what I want to talk about. All the experts say it's much better for a tree to get rid of that burlap. I used to, sometimes you'd fold it down off the top of the root ball, but then it takes forever to break down when it's folded down into the hole. You can't even see me right now because the sun's behind me. So yeah, fiber pots should come off. Everything should come off. So I hope I've kind of just said everything in this video just to let you know why we want to take that stuff off.